Hey, good morning, guys. It's me. It's Sunday. I want to do a quick video. Actually, it's not going to be very quick. I'm sorry. I apologize right now. Um, Before I started working out, I already done my Bible study, and I even went to an online church with my one friend, watching their sermon. Just that's what I do to ground myself, especially on Sunday. And I needed some peace. So as I was listening to worship songs and doing some praying and listening to different pastors this morning, it's I needed it. I needed it, because as I was looking at what's going on in our country, it's making me more and more concerned growing up, in this nation, and a lot of you guys might not know that my oldest grandson left, or is leaving this morning to go to Alabama to go stay with his father for a little bit, and we're unsure of when he's going to come back. And so you guys know he's my heart, and I am praying for him to have a great experience with his father, because it is much needed, and I think all kids should have a father figure, that should be their father, and even though I'm going to miss him tremendously, I'm going to miss you a lot, buddy. Um, my major concern is him going to Alabama as a young black man, and the title of this video was growing up scared, and I didn't realize how many subconscious fears I have that I've minimized being a black man in this country. And I tell you, I had to sit down because normally my videos are just kind of off the cuff, as I'm driving, and I had to sit down and take notes for this one because I had a lot of things that I had to iron out in my own mind, on my own fears and concerns. And so I'm hoping that this video is informative and not inflammatory. I mean, if I step on your toes, I'm really sorry. I don't want to step on your toes, so to speak. How some people say, "Well, I don't care if I offend you." I do care. I do care because when people are offended, we stop learning from each other. And above all else, I want to educate. I feel like that's my role. So, anyways, I thought I would just kind of start off with some of the things that I wrote down as just far as my experiences that I had to write down for myself in encountering racism. And mind you, racism to me is in several different formats and levels. There's a subconscious racism, which can fall into just having stereotypes that we've never really been experienced or educated to understand something new. And I think we all have those, when it comes to different cultures that we are unexperienced in, and we end up learning it from the media, which is a terrible place to be educated about another culture, you know. But and we have to really take a look at that ourselves, as far as the blind spots that we have in understanding another culture's perspective. So I wrote down a lot of my experiences in no chronological order. Okay, it's just as it came to my mind. And one of the first ones that I wrote down was when I bought my first really good car. And it was a neon. It was a green neon, Dodge Neon, and I love that thing. Um, and I bought it from it was out in the country somewhere, and it all went through smoothly, which kind of surprised me because I didn't think I could get a car, which also goes into my own cultural upbringing, which I'm gonna go into a little bit more about that. But after I bought the car, it was a couple days later, the saleswoman called me, and she wanted to express her pleasant surprise in meeting me, in my demeanor and my character and the way I acted and how professional I was. And actually she wanted to invite me over to dinner to show me to her family. Now, that's not overt racism, okay? That's To me that was just being inexperienced with another culture, but see, to me, I didn't even realize it back then. So I just took it as a compliment, which it was a compliment, and I just kind of laughed it off, and I told a joke about, yeah, we're not all like on cops, and she laughed and and then compared me. I reminded her of Sinbad, and I looked kind of like Sinbad, the comedian. Now, mind you, I don't look anything like Sinbad, but because there were so few African American actors and comedians out there, she looked for something to draw a comparison to. Okay, so I look back at another instance where I wanted to be an actor growing up, and my mom said, "No, you need to pick something realistic." And I would have been a phenomenal actor, but I'm looking at it through my mom's eyes and her experiences, in the fact that there weren't that many black actors back then, that were actually making any money and making a living. And the other part of the culture, that because the culture changes with each generation, but the other part of it was that a lot of my people have learned to kind of stay underneath the radar. That's why culturally, generally, we don't go to the police, because there aren't very many good experiences with that, as we see now. Um, and it's hard to break that culture of fear, So I believe that's where my mom was coming from. And another instance with my mom is when I had to go to the hospital. She thought I broke my arm, and she was worried about how they would perceive me at the hospital because I didn't have insurance and I was going to pay out of pocket. And I just wanted a checkup, and I had the money to pay. No, no, no. I had insurance and I forgot I didn't know where my insurance card was. So she thought that there would be a problem with the way I was dressed because I wasn't in my casual kind of dress clothes like I would normally wear at work. I was just dressed casual. I think I had sweatpants on and a t-shirt. And so I was in school at the time. And so I brought my laptop because I knew going into the waiting room that it's going to be a long wait, you know. So as I'm there going from one waiting room to the next, you know how it rolls. I had my laptop with me to do some work, and I would just put my laptop up and plug it into the socket. And my mom started to freak out on me. She's like, "You are not allowed to do that. You are going to get in trouble and we're going to get kicked out of here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" No, so I turned around and I asked her, and I said, "Do you mind if I use my laptop here in the socket?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's no problem. It's okay." And my mom just looked at me like I had three eyes. But she was coming from experiences she's had. Now, mind you, my mom was a nurse. So I'm led to believe that she was coming from experiences that she's actually had, working in the hospitals. So it's not like she wasn't educated. So that was another experience. Another one was when I was working in the group home, and I had to. I forget what the movie was, but anyways, a fight broke out in the movie theater, and so I went. I told my guys that I was with. I said, "Okay, we gotta go." So I start packing up all my boys, my teenagers, and we start heading to the van. And some of my guys weren't even in the movie theater; they were walking around with their girlfriends. And so I took my guys to the van, and then I went back in to go find my other boys and make sure they were okay. And when I got in there, and I don't even remember if I had my badge on or not. A police officer stopped me, and it was an older guy. And he just started yelling at me. And I'm like, I got to find my boys. I work at a group home. And he said, "Are you giving me a hard time?" And I said, "No, I just want to find my boys." And he started to pull his baton on me. And he called for backup. And I'm in shock. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Sir, I just trying to find my guys in the group home." And he's like, "If you say another word, we're taking you in." And that's probably the harshest my encounter I've had with the police in that example. Now, mind you, I left, went back out, and I hate to break it down to black and white, but I went and found a black police officer and said, "Hey, I'm just trying to find my kids. And so he escorted me back in to go find them because that's what was happening. You know, another time when I was in high school, I tried out, I was in a choir called the Echoes. Yes, I was a singer. And I tried out for a play called Oklahoma. And I wanted the lead role or one of the lead roles, and I sang for it and I could sing, and I remember them pulling me aside and telling me that and she was really nice. I loved her to death, but she said that East Canton isn't ready for you to be the lead in a play like this because I was black. And once again, I kind of blinked because I wasn't used to being turned down because of the color of my skin. And I don't think of her as being prejudiced. She was just letting me know that it wouldn't be in your best interest to take that role. You know, and I had other examples. When I was dating a white girl, and it was always in secret. Because I remember I was in the library with her, and her mother found out that I was in the library studying with her before she even got back home. Because I guess the librarian called another friend, and another friend called her to let her know that her daughter was in the library studying with a black kid. And I'm just giving you guys these examples of the things that I've encountered and experienced coming to the age that I am 51. So I'm not trying to I don't know, I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but I want to kind of give some background to why I've grown up afraid. And I'm not saying that I'm afraid in a very physical sense. Well, maybe now I am, but I grew up afraid of being accepted. I grew up afraid of being rejected. I grew up afraid of being misunderstood. Hold on, I wrote down some stuff. I grew up afraid of being powerless and being treated unfairly. And a lot of these things were subconscious um, from the things that I have experienced. I grew up afraid of being too vocal because if I wasn't kind of quiet, I would be targeted. Um, so that's why I was struggling with doing this video because I still have some of that in the background in my consciousness. That if I talk too loudly about racism that still exists, I'm going to be censored, targeted, and ostracized. Um, Let me give another example. Another example: when I lived in Ocean Pines, it was a very exclusive neighborhood. It was right off the water, and we were blessed to get it. And I remember I had been pulled over twice by the police, asking me why I'm there, and then wanting to search the van. You know, for no reason at all. When I was working with some youth, we were doing a program, and it was kind of like a work study program where I would go to work with them. And we had got this job working in a mall watering plants. And so we would have to go after the mall closed. And and it was hard work. You would think watering all the plants in a big mall is long, and sometimes we'd have to move the plants, which were freaking heavy. But needless to say, we would come back tired. And we would have to drive back from Youngstown to Canton, excuse me, and we would go through neighborhoods, little small Mayberry neighborhoods, whatever. And we got pulled over. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We got pulled over, me and this white kid that was with me, and the kid was hot. And this is the difference between cultures. He starts cussing. What the f are they pulling us over for? What is their problem? Da 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 da. And I'm like, yo, dude, you need to be quiet. You know, and I think that was the first time, as I'm going through my list, that I remember activating my own consciousness of the situation I was in. I was afraid. I said, "You need to be quiet." And I said, "You don't have anything on you, no drugs or anything." And he's like, and I'm pretty sure he didn't, but I just want to check. He's like, no, well, I don't have anything. I said, well, you need to be quiet because they're pulling us over because I'm a black dude and you're a white guy and we're driving through the neighborhood in the middle of the night. And he's like, so? and, and this is the different cultures. And I'm like, he thinks we're drug dealers. He's like, why would they think that? And I told him, I was like, you just need to be quiet. Just be quiet. So the officer pulls me over, asks me to step out of the car, doesn't even ask for my driver's license. Um, and I didn't have any shoes and socks on because my feet hurt. And I got out and he's like, why don't you have any shoes on? And the dude I was with, he's like, what does that matter? And I'm like, dude, be quiet. And I said, my feet are tired, sir. I was extremely humble when talking to the police, um, because I was aware of my situation. So needless to say, he let us off with a warning, and my guy's still talking. He's like, a warning for what? And he told me, he's like, you need to keep your friend quiet. And I'm like, look, officer, we're just heading back from work. He's just tired. I'm tired too. And so we drove back. Let me think anything else really big that I wanted to share. Oh, whew, big one. And this was recent. I was talking to my mom about a couple months ago, and she admitted that she thought that she never thought I would make it. She thought I would be dead or in jail by now. And back then when she told me that, it kind of blew me away. But now that I think about it, she was responding to events that have happened to her or that she's witnessed. And this is the cultural difference. How many of us who are not, African American, I mean, let's just break it down, or a minority, fear for your kid growing up dead or in jail? And these are the blind spots that we have when it comes to cultural diversity. You know, there's a lot of things that, and this is the problem. We don't even talk about it. We don't even talk about it. Just like growing up, um, there was no real history for Black people beyond slavery. Who were we beyond slavery? And in understanding that, I mean, part of the problem that I see is that there's a shame aspect in even talking about racism. Because just with in Germany, it's very difficult to have an open dialogue about what happened to the Jews during Hitler's campaign. Why is that? Well, it's because it was extremely shameful. you know um and so we run into the same kind of mental blocks for Black and white people. A lot of Black people have difficulty talking about our ancestry, because one, we don't know it, and two, it's painful to talk about that I came from slaves. That there's a psychological damaging effect about that. you know and then on the other side, the Caucasian, the European side, it's hard to talk about a shameful ancestry where ancestors have, well, look what we did to the Indians. And then after that we enslaved a race, where it was brutal. I mean, just brutal. And I don't even want to talk about the details of that, of what happened, but it's difficult to talk about, you know and some of my friends will say, well, it's better than it used to be. And even in saying that, it's, to me, it's like comparing, a woman who goes through physical abuse and then gets with a new partner that's just verbally abusive. Um, is one really better than the other? I don't know. I would like to say that no, I don't think it's better. I think they're both very destructive in their own manner, except the problem with verbal abuse is very hard to prove, and the damage is even more deep. You know, and I look at that kind of like racism, where racism is no longer overt, where Black people are in the cotton fields, but there is still covert acts of racism that are happening that are harder to prove, but no less damaging. And that's what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with a lot of covert stuff that's hard to prove, but no less damaging, you know. And it's funny because I look at my life growing up. I learned to be funny because that was the easiest way for me to be accepted, you know. I learned to speak proper, or and I say that I'm bilingual. I speak European as my second language, you know. But I learned that also because of the environment that I grew up in, but also as a tool for success, you know, to communicate and put, my white brothers and sisters at ease when I'm communicating. What else did I write down? Hold on, give me a second. We go to the back page. I had another one. My one friend Jeffrey, when he was living, he told me a story when he was in the military, and they had, I forget what the group was called, but it was a group where they exchanged information between different races. And he started talking about his childhood growing up, and in their house and everything, and he couldn't even get past that where he was interrupted because someone said you had a house, and they were shocked because he or she, I couldn't remember the male or female, said that they were brought up to believe that black people never owned homes and they just lived in apartments, you know. And it's just those little pockets. Actually, I don't know if you have enough holes in the framework of a house, it will crumble. So we got these little holes in our education and experience with other races and now we're putting the additional weight of things that are happening in our country, from the pandemic to the economic crisis to everything. And now those holes with racism are coming out, and they're breaking down the structure even more than anything else. And that's why we're seeing, I mean, last night I was listening to the police scanner, that I have an app on my phone. And nothing, thank God nothing was happening in my immediate neighborhood. But I kept seeing pockets of information for all across the country of protests that were turning violent, and how the police were responding. And it was making me very, very, very nervous, and I think about that a lot as I go out into the community. And one of the things that, I was telling my one friend, I said, when you think about whether whether or not you believe racism is alive and well or not, there are things that I experience as a black man that, I have a license to carry concealed, because of my job, because of what I do, because I do security at my church, which means I can carry a gun, a loaded gun, on my person wherever I go, except New York. Now, should I carry everywhere I go? Now, and I want you to think about that. With all the things that are happening today, that have been happening, what are the odds that I will be mistakenly or accidentally shot? And I always have to think about that on whether I will carry in certain environments. I mean, I'm allowed to carry all the time if I wanted to, but is it wise for me? And that is pretty much the core of my experience as a black man today. That there are things that are still going on that we can't turn a blind eye to, um, or sweep under the rug and not discuss. We need to have more education and understanding and discussions about what is really going on. It's got to start there. It's almost like, when I'm dealing with a client who's struggling with alcohol or drugs, and the first part of healing is admitting the depth of the problem. And it's the same thing in this situation. The first part of any possibility of healing is admitting the depth of the problem. And it's deeper than we think. And I know we don't like to think about it. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's difficult. But if we don't, we're going to continue to disintegrate as a country, as a nation, as a people. And it's going to make me more and more nervous for my grandkids and kids to grow up here. So that's my topic for today. I just want something for you guys to think about. Um, I love you guys, and I'm praying for you guys, and please keep me in prayer, because I am a little nervous. And this is not me saying that I don't have faith. It's me being aware. Aware. I am a big, bald black man, and not everybody sees my smile. Not everybody knows who I am, and I don't want to be an accidental statistic. So, love you guys. Talk to you guys later, and I hope this is going to be a better week. Peace.